Gotta remember what to say, huh? Good evening. Welcome back. We're going to begin the meeting for Akron City Council. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik, Mosley,
Aye.
Neal, Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present except for Connor and Freeman.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, will you please stand at this time as we are led in prayer by Minister Marissa Saunders from Sister Talk, and she is joining us online.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Council. Let's go ahead and bow our heads in prayer. Lord, it's in the name of Jesus that I come to you, and I thank you for another wonderful day here in the city of Akron. I want to thank you, Lord, for the recess that our leaders were able to have, and I pray that they feel refreshed and ready to take charge and just continue to lead Akron forward. Lord, I pray that Akron will be a city set on a hill that cannot be shaken. I pray that you remind each and every person under the sound of my voice, remind them of their purpose and their calling that you have for them. Let them feel a sense of hope and encouragement that Akron is headed in a great direction, Lord. I pray, Lord, that you would show us that we have more in common than we have apart. And it's in the name of Jesus that I pray and I thank you. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I'm going to ask if Councilman Kamer will lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Fusco, Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Abstain.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
The minutes pass 10-0 with one abstention.
We have no items on the consent agenda. We do have one item up for public hearing, and our clerk will read in item number 1.
Notice is hereby given that the following open comment public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, September 11th, 2023, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish an apartment use at 133 Merriman Road.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of council. Temple Hall Revival Group LLC is requesting to subdivide portions of the approximately 46,000 square foot building to provide studio apartments for artists and residency renters. The Temple Hall Revival Group refers to the site as the Highland Universal Gathering Event Place. Their mission is to educate and entertain through the redevelopment of the building as a creative arts collaborative center. Conditional approval for the HUG, or Huge Event Place, was passed by Akron City Council in November of 22. Existing classroom spaces in the building would be converted into 14 studio apartments with full bathrooms and appliances ranging in size from 400 to 1,100 square feet of area. The apartments will cater directly to artists that can take up residency while they collaborate with their peers, professionals, and students. New double insulated windows are to be installed in the apartments to not only provide energy efficiency, but minimize the ambient light and sound from the apartment units. A parking lot situated to the north provides parking for 20 vehicles, with individuals being able to access the building from a side entrance. 60 additional parking spaces are located across the street on Merriman Road. Lighting in the parking areas has been converted to a low-level LED so as not to shine into residential areas. Petitioner is also providing a solid fence along the back property line to screen from residences along Weber Avenue. The historic structure had been vacant for several years, yet it is large enough and well-suited for an adaptive reuse that includes the proposed residential studio apartments, along with the approved event center and banquet hall. Artist in residence studios will allow this to become a mixed-use facility specializing in promotion of the arts. It will complement the Highland Square neighborhood and many other cultural institutions and venues within the area. The planning staff and planning commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to open up our public hearing. Do we have anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or against? I know our petitioner, Mr. Tropey, is joining us online, so I'm just going to ask if both of you would be sworn in by our clerk.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do." Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to begin with those who wish to speak in favor. So if we can begin with our petitioner. Mr. Tropey, if you want to start us off. And I think you're on mute. Nope.
How's that?
Perfect. We can hear you now.
Does that work?
Yes. You can't hear us?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Technology advances. Thank you for helping me set this up today, Ms. Biviano. That's very appropriate. This is a really novel approach to getting things done. And that's really what I'm about, hoping that we can happen here soon. I've taken wise counsel, and my friends around me have told me to reach out to the neighbors and practice what's over the front door. Love thy neighbor as thyself. It's not the great suggestion, it's a great commandment. So I'm just doing what I'm told, and that's typically what I do. So we're engaged in a wonderful process here of converting this historic structure to a public gathering space for the arts and for an educational purpose. And also the mix of uses will enable artists and art lovers to reside there. The places are being finished out with the highest level of detail, with all new windows, HVA systems that are going to be individually metered mechanically, and just state-of-the-art communications and opportunities for artists to live in the arts. So that's really what we're out to do. There is an existing apartment that's been in the building since before the transition from the faith congregation through Digital Academy. Had always been an apartment there for a groundskeeper, a maintenance man, a security guard. And we have one unit there, and our plan is to build another 13 units. So I'm looking forward to council's favorable approval with conditions. And I've been exploring the conditions this past week with my neighbors and others that are giving us good ideas to follow. I had great opportunity to meet with Teresa there just this past week. We've been doing a lot of planning and getting all of our plans lined up and submitted to the proper authorities, seeking full plan approval and all the other items that'll keep our project moving forward. We look right now for the conditional reuse of zoning, but with the conditions that we're going to be addressing some key factors that had proposed concern. In my backyard, I have some great neighbors, and I would hope that I could be a great neighbor to the west, as well as the other folks that we're inviting to live there amongst this great neighborhood that's rooted and known for a celebration of the arts. So along that about 70-foot section that the building extends to our neighbor to the east, Mrs. Byerly, we're moving forward on the construction of a fenced wall between 6 and 10 feet. That'll afford one of the initial concerns about privacy and sound attenuation. That fence line will continue along the north line, along our vacant property to the north, where we have a prayer and meditation labyrinth designed by Chuck Ayers, and a nice little outdoor gathering spot, a chapel for folks who want to get married, a place to have TED Talks, an opportunity to sing and dance and celebrate the Psalms, all be occurring on this northern property. That fence will continue there. the sound issues are a concern, but all the windows in that building now are single pane glass, uninsulated. We're going to be providing new state-of-the-art Anderson double insulated, low E, and brand new windows throughout the building, approved by the Department of the Interior and National Park Service. The building is on the registry. The new windows will be tight. They'll be deadened. The issue about noise, well, all of our celebrations there stop cold at 11, and the outdoor activities will all stop cold by 10. So we're going to contain noise and manage the property with the sensitivities that we have of having neighbors in our backyard. Of course, we'll always invite them to our parties, because that's one way to circumvent a challenge. But it's a great gathering spot that people can walk to and enjoy locally. So we got noise and light. Light right now is a particular concern to me because we've had a couple of incidents at the site. We've had materials taken professionally. Heavy duty machine equipment is a concern, but we got lighting there now that kind of brightens the whole space. And until we can move some more residents in there full time, the security is something that we'll be addressing with lights, alarms, cameras, as well as downlights, low LED, and about a 2800 kV, so it'll be more of a daylight glow. The idea of noise and sound and lighting, hours of operation are all going to fit together, I think, to create a congenial environment that my friends and neighbors will say, hey, this was a good use of this space, and it actually has added value to our property, and it's actually part of a solution to demonstrate how you can take vacant buildings that are blighted, could take a wrong direction, and turn them into adaptive reuse, mixed use celebrations of historic places. So I'm working hard on this, and I know my neighbors have some concerns, and I will continue to work hard in everyone's best interest to see that this project gains not only its approvals, but unanimous accolades as well. So I'm thankful for this opportunity to share with you now. I'm open to good ideas and questions, and I'll continue on that route. I'm Tony Tropey.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Tropey. At this time, is there anyone else here in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of item number 1, in favor? I'm going to ask that you approach the podium and just give us your name.
Good evening, I'm Apostolette. I'm glad you all are back from your break. I hope everybody got a chance to catch up on a few things. For this item on the agenda, I have a couple of questions. I'd like to know what makes this an emergency. That's the first thing. And I would like to know, Council President and the council and those in this room, what is the racial population for this school, as well as economic population in the community where the school is located, as well as in the academic arena? Who will be able to afford the apartments? And are these for people with scholarships? Are they for people who are struggling to pay their way through school? What is the overall picture of who's going to benefit from these apartments and this housing being available? I'm really concerned because I see a lot of people who have money already getting things, but I see homelessness increasing tremendously among people who are not white, among people who are mentally ill, among people who are poor, among people who are working middle class and working poor class. So I'm trying to see who's going to benefit from this housing. And I would love to have some answers at an appropriate time that the public would know this too, because if this is an opportunity for some people who can come out of homelessness and who can come out of transition or who just want to do some other things with their lives, I would like to have this opportunity made available across the board. And I still would like to know the answer to what is the racial population for this community and this school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll try and get those questions answered for you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Hello, I'm Whitman Sullivan. Okay, that's odd. I'm Whitman Sullivan, and I'm a Highland Square resident. I'd just like to say that, like, over the last few years, I've seen this site really transform into something really beautiful. You know, I've lived in Highland Square all my life, and I've seen, like, I remember even when I was like 5 being this dilapidated old building, and to see it finally being put to use as something really great, a space for artists and a community space is really something that I'm happy to see, and I really want to see where we can go farther, adding housing and other uses. So I'm 100% in favor of this.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone here wishing to speak against? And you can approach the podium.
Hi, my name is Dr. Teresa Byerly. I live at 662 Weber Avenue. I'm sorry for those of you who were here earlier today, you've already heard this, but we're going to go through it again. I've been a resident of Akron for 43 years. Just to give you a little background about me and my life, 2 of my 4 degrees are from the University of Akron, and I graduated from Leadership Akron in 2001. Professionally, I've worked for the university and for a number of local nonprofits, and most of my work was in community engagement. I have done thousands of hours of volunteer work in Akron, and I have donated thousands of dollars to the Akron community through our nonprofits. I love Akron. I love Highland Square. I love the development that is going on throughout most of our community. I am also a resident, and I am very concerned. I've owned my house for 33 years, and my background abuts the Temple property. 8 of the proposed apartments overlook or lie within approximately 70 feet of my back door. My backyard is about 95 feet wide. Since the property was purchased in December of 2021, I've been very concerned about the impact of this proposed use on our neighborhood. Weber Avenue is a very quiet, peaceful, and stable neighborhood. You can actually hear the crickets, the birds, the dogs. There's just not a lot of loud, obnoxious noise. There's not much. It's a very private, quiet neighborhood. We're lucky. Most people don't know it's there. But everything in our neighborhood is downhill from the Temple. Incidentally, the Temple is about 2.5 stories high above my yard. Not that you can picture it. Once the ownership of the Temple transferred, which was 20 months ago, we have had no formal communication with the owners about the proposed use. No formal communication. In the past week, we have had informal communication. So we have not had time. We have not been seeing these ideas until they came through in city notices. So far, signs have been erected without proper approval. Construction work has been done without permits. Ultra-bright lights have been installed in the parking lot, which disrupt our yards and our living rooms. A resident moved into the building without proper zoning approval, and recently a neighbor's property was excavated without permission. I understand that Tony is a visionary. I accept that, and I think he does incredible work. But I also think he is not used to working in neighborhoods with residents. So the bottom line of my concerns, and yes, we have talked about some proposed conditions, but the bottom line is there is a real history of lax code enforcement in Akron. I could see it myself. I just learned how to look up permit applications and permits that have been approved on the Summit County website. I can see which buildings have permits and which buildings do not, and the Temple does not. And so my point is, why? Why do some people get permission or not get permission or not be told they can't do something and others can do whatever they want? I mean, some people, the rules are not the same. They are not consistent. That concerns me as a resident. I want to maintain a good quality of life for myself and for my neighbors. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Hello again, I'm Jody Grassgreen Delamater, 699 Weber Avenue. I want to say up front, I have been a volunteer at the renovated temple. I am in support of it, but not the way Mr. Tropey's doing it. Our concerns about this project are many, including unaddressed sewer issues, major excavation on a hill adjacent to neighbors' properties without permits being issued, and noise. This work is being done on a very hilly neighborhood noted for its underground springs that sprout up in streets and on properties. We don't know if Mr. Tropey has addressed the issues around the sewers that back up as described at the June Planning Commission by architect and neighbor Bill Ahern. In June, when the Planning Commission heard from the neighbors of these concerns, they decided to wait before granting Mr. Tropey permission to go on. And that was, I think that was, it was for the apartments that we're talking about tonight. In July, without notifying any of the neighbors, or without requiring Mr. Tropey to follow up on the very stipulations that they said that he needed to do, voted to approve the plan. The neighbors were not notified that this was coming up for consideration in July. In June, we provided our names and addresses, as we have to do in order to participate. So why weren't we notified? We were interested parties. They knew us. They knew how to reach out to us. Yet they didn't do that. The process being followed by the administration, the commission, and council, they seem to put more teeth into neighbors snitching on neighbors about milkweed than they do about major changes to a building and property nestled in a high-density neighborhood. We as citizens are gavelled down if we speak 3 seconds over our 2 or 3 minutes. Stipulations about public engagement seem more important than the very serious issues raised about this and many other development projects throughout Akron. It seems that Mr. Tropey needs to finish his work by the end of this year to receive a historic tax break, and he gets to bulldoze without a permit so he can get his work done. The very real feeling is the balance of power is out of kilter, and the citizens have little voice. I know you hear my voice too often, but I don't know that it means anything. The process pits you against us and neighbors against neighbors. We must find a better way. This isn't healthy for us as individuals, as public servants, as citizens, as residents of Akron, or it won't help Ohio or anything else. This is not a healthy process. Let's do better.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, William Ahern. Jody kind of ratted me out a little bit. I wasn't going to say that much about myself. I live at 650 Weber. I would state, for the record, I'm not against, I'm not for, I'm not against, or I'm for. I spoke here at some hearings, a couple hearings ago, and, seeing that temple empty and, one concern is I never wanted to be a vacant building that catches on fire. So, it's good to see it get developed. But I'm going to mostly talk about my one concern, and it might be a little selfish, but so I am just down the hill from Teresa, and, and her backyard is up high, and when the apartment thing came up, I never realized a couple of them were right down on the first floor, just looking right into her backyard. My house steps down a little bit. Where my property touches the temple, it's a 20-foot drop down to Weber. That's, the hill that we live on. The music was something that came along in the amphitheater. I don't know when that happened, but so it's happening. And, we'll see. I don't go to bed that early, but, if I was somebody buying a house on that street with an infant, I don't know. But So I'm going to be selfish, though, and I'm just going to talk about my little piece of property when I moved into it back in the 90s. I'm a young guy, and there's an easement, and it's a storm line easement, as I understand. It's taken all the water from the second addition that building had, and I'll say it's like the 60s. You know, the parking lot to the west, all that water goes into a catch basin, and then it gets piped to a catch basin down in the corner of my yard. So the pipe must run along the back of the wall in Teresa's backyard. And so there's a catch basin in my backyard, and then it takes a 90-degree and shoots down to Weber, where there's a manhole. So when I first moved in, that thing overflowed. I hadn't lived there very long. The temple took care of it. You know, I communicated with them. They snaked it or whatever, and it's never overflowed since, but it's just a concern. You know, it's been a lot of years since then, and the catch basin up in the corner of my property, it's had leaves cover it up. I used to keep it opened up, and then over the years, it is somewhat concealed. So I don't think Tony Tropy, or I don't think anybody even knows it's there, or they're not taking the time to know about it. So I keep talking about that, and they've connected to that line. They're putting a little more water in it now with the amphitheater being built. You know, they're doing the right thing that we do nowadays. They're putting a bunch of gravel in and catching water so it can't run off into the neighbor's backyard. It would mostly be who's uphill from Teresa. But by doing the right thing, they're putting a little more water in that pipe that runs down next to my house. So it's just a concern. And you know, in the future, if it ever clogs up, I would expect it to be taken care of by the owner of that property, like it was when I first moved in that one time. I was worried about any sanitary lines being there, and I can't find any documents from way back that maybe only a realtor showed me at the time, you know, and excuse me, let me know about this easement. I'm sure there's records with the city. I did call Sanitary Storm Division that's up on Akron Peninsula Road, and a woman helped me on the phone, and I left that paperwork at work. I think her name was Katie. She put me on hold. She talked to somebody. She got back with me and said she did not think there was a sanitary line in that easement. But that is a fear of mine, especially seeing the apartments going in down on that lower floor. You know, where's the sanitary getting connected up to? Where's the sanitary for that existing apartment that was there years ago? And I do see a clean out behind the apartment in the concrete. And I talked to Tony Tropy a couple weeks ago, and he's got to do some work up there, but you know, that metal top of this clean out, is that a sanitary line? So it's just a concern. And when I spoke a couple months ago, you know, I said 13 apartments, that's a lot of kitchen sink and garbage disposal, restrooms, toilet is the big one. And so I just always wanted to make sure that the sanitary, you know, I assume there's good plumbing documents down at over on Talmadge Avenue, and, you know, everything's being done properly. So those are my concerns, which is a little selfish. I'm just talking about my yard and the sanitary, there is no sanitary, hopefully, and then just the future of that storm line. As far as the music and all that other stuff, we'll see. Things seem to just be moving forward no matter what anybody says, but maybe it's not going to be a bad thing. It's going to be a good thing, hopefully. But so I'm just looking out for that one item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing.
Good evening. My name is Dan Whittam. I live at 86 Cooter Avenue. I'm a 3L at the University of Akron School of Law, and I've lived at my residence for 2.5 years. My main concern about this development is the exterior lighting on the building. It shines outwards and upwards and is intrusive to the neighbors. The conditions on approval mention that the lighting in the parking lot shines downwards and is modern. However, there's no mention of the existing lighting on the outside of the building. That is a concern of mine. It is intrusive to me and all the neighbors. I live over a block away, and it casts shadows into my living room. I raised these concerns at the zoning meeting in June, along with my neighbors, and that meeting concluded with instructions to the developer to meet with the neighbors and to work out the concerns. There's been no such meeting. Notice of this hearing was the first I've heard since then. So if this is how it's going to go, he is not cooperating with the neighbors to work out our problems. That's a big concern for me. I would like him for no decision to be made today because he still has not followed through on the meeting with the neighbors to address our concerns. That's what I want, a meeting with him to address our concerns and come up with an actual plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak against? Seeing and hearing none, we are going to close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco, what is the committee's pleasure?
I'd like to pull a committee to refer this item, take time. Kamer? Aye. Baylor? Baylor?
I think she's frozen, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Can we give her?
Mosley?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that gives us 3.
Okay, very good. So this item will be referred?
Yes, thank you.
Any further comment?
Nope.
Okay. We're going to continue and move into our old business, and we'll continue with planning economic development. Councilman Fusco?
Time on the agenda, thank you.
Okay. Time will be granted.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. My Zoom is also frozen, so I'm trying to connect. I'm not sure that they can hear us right now.
It's the internet. I'm not even online. Running diagnostics. I'm on now. All right, here we go. Are you on the internet? It just kicked me off. So I'm on. Mic froze. All right.
Excuse me.
We're having a great time, Nancy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Gabriel.
How's
Thanks. Thanks
how's
for asking.
Akron?
Akron's beautiful.
I love Akron so much. I'm an
Ak-
uprising star.
Akron's outstanding.
Okay, we can hear you now. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Councilwoman Holland, can you hear us? Councilwoman Holland, can you hear us now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to continue with our meeting. Thank you for your patience and understanding. We do have brand new equipment here in the chambers, so just kind of bear with us here. So thank you. We're going to continue with our old business, budget and finance. Councilwoman Amobian. Time will be granted. And that actually concludes our old business. We'll now move into new legislation, starting with budget and finance.
Item number 1, offered by Amobian, resolution requesting that the Summit County Fiscal Officer make an advanced payment of tax funds for tax year 2023 payable in 2024 to the City of Akron Treasury Division and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Amobian,
Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections with suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This is what we do every year. We ask for the advancement of taxes that are due us, and it helps us with cash flow.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 11-0. Item number 2, offered by Amobian, ordinance accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission of Summit County and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the Summit County Fiscal Officer and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Amobian,
The committee's report is favorable, and we ask for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
I think this has to do with the inside millage, and we will see more tax collected. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Fusco, Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 3, offered by Amobian, ordinance authorizing the Director of Law or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Voorhees, Sater, Seymour, and Pease LLP for the provision of professional legal services for the City of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Amobian,
Committee's report is favorable, and we ask for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to make sure that as a part of our formal record in this meeting, the discussion we had this afternoon, you know, we've had the Brookings Report now going almost 8 years. We've had many discussions about creating opportunities for those who have been locked out of participating in city contracts. I think it would be good for, a lot of times when we think of that, we think of construction, but with professional services, as I said during the meeting earlier this afternoon, I know for a fact there was a company that was well qualified, provided bonding for the airport that was built in Philadelphia. They couldn't even get a look at providing bonding services for the city that they grew up in. So I'd like for us to be intentional. If the different departments could come back with what their plan is to recruit and make known opportunities for minority businesses, specifically black businesses, since that's what the Brookings Institute pointed out, to participate in the bidding process. If we have to create some type of professional job fair where they can learn about this, because, you know, the excuse that these are difficult and too complex to engage people, well, somebody had to have an opportunity at some point in time. And if we're not intentional about creating these opportunities, persons will always be locked out of being able to apply for these contracts. So I'd just like it for it to be a part of our official record, and would love for before, I mean, we've got the capital budget coming up here pretty soon, for these departments to come with us with their plan for outreach to engage businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Any other comments? Councilwoman Mobian?
Yeah, this afternoon I made a similar remark that if we continue to just renew contracts without bidding them, how do we get new thoughts, new ideas, and fresh view of our practices? And I was asking Mr. Angeloni, how long have we been in a contractual relationship with this law firm? He didn't know specifically, but he said it was a number of years. And he gave reasons why, which are typically the same reasons: a good relationship, a good outcome for the city of Akron. And that is good, but again, we are leaving firms out of the opportunity to bid. And who knows how that relationship could work out. But I just think we just need to start thinking about how do we think about opening up these contractual opportunities for bidding for new relationships.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Fusco?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number
That concludes my report.
Item number 4 was pulled by the sponsor. Item number 5, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish an auto repair business at 1152 Grant Street and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer and advertise for a public hearing.
this item will be referred.
Item number 6, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized garage at 677 Cuyahoga Street and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer and advertise for a public hearing.
this item will be referred.
Item number 7, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place an oversized pole sign at 725 South Canton Road and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will be referred.
Item number 8, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized garage at 1203 Sawyer Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will also be referred.
Item number 9, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to retain a two-family dwelling at 2447 Newton Street and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will be referred.
Item number 10, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a solid fence beyond the building line at 1558 Hampton Road and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will be referred.
Item number 11, offered by Mosley. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept and expend grant funding from the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation Safety Intervention Grant and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Mosley,
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Fusco? Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Amobian. Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 12, offered by Mosley, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids, requesting and receiving requests for proposals, requesting and receiving quotes and/or self-performing work for construction of Firestone Stadium batting cages and bullpens, and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Mosley.
The committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian. Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 13, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to file an application for, and if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the U.S. EPA's Office of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund for award option number 3 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick.
Committee requests consent agenda.
Thank you. This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 14, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into a joint funding agreement with the United States Department of the Interior for the operation and maintenance of flow measurement gauges and the collection of stream flow data for the period October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2026, authorizing payment for the same and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick.
Consent agenda, please.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 15, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry, to apply for and accept the ODNR Urban Canopy Restoration Grant and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick.
Also consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 16, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with Fusus to amend the current contract for an additional year from July 15th, 2023 to July 14th, 2024, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This is a contract to continue the work with the UA camera project, South Campus, over by the Akron U area.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik. Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 17, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to file an application for, and if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the state's Body Armor Grant Program and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules, please.
Any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This is for the city and the police department to move forward with the rest of the funds for the body armor grant.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 18, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Law or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with victim assistance to provide services for the city pertaining to the victims of crimes and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is consent agenda. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Item number 18 will be placed on the consent agenda. That does conclude our new legislation for this evening. We're now going to move to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. If you are here in the audience and you signed up to participate, I'm going to ask that you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just going to ask when you hear your name, please approach the podium. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. And we're going to begin with Christina Frazier. Is Christina Frazier here with us? Okay. We're going to move to Teresa Gussie. Yes, please. Pull it. There you go. Push the button. There you go.
Thank you. Teresa Gussie, Gussey, 1213 Beardsley Street, Ward 7. Okay. Can I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hold on a minute. This is what I have to do down at Akron General Avenue at the cardiology entrance at the General Hospital. People are trying to run us over. I have a husband that's in a wheelchair. I had a fractured foot and somebody tried to run me over. The valets think I'm funny because I did this, but this helps me because to get across, because some people, they come down Cedar and turn on to Akron General and they're going 40 miles or 35 miles an hour. And I've talked to the city, they put up a new sign in the middle of state law, stop for yield to pedestrians. The other one was a little one, so they did do that. But I'm down here to put it on the record because the valet told me that somebody did get hurt down there. I don't know if they filed a report or not. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk to is that form or that tablet or whatever you have to figure. When we were down here before, me and this other lady, she's deceased now, we stopped that where we had to fill out forms and stuff to come in and talk. We should be able to come in and do this. Remember, we had to fill out the form and say word for word what we were going to talk about. I know you get a lot of people like me that are crazy and stuff to talk, but it's entertaining. I like to hear what they're saying and stuff. But it takes a long time to fill that form out, and people will be backed up. And let's see. Oh, squatters. We have a store across the street, and the people left, and the real estate lady was there, and they were squatting in there. We had 3 police calls come to this. It wasn't me. It was the other neighbors because I don't want any trouble. Anyways, they came out, and they told my neighbors that they can't do anything, but they did arrest one of them. They were squatting in there, and they finally notified the people, and we got them out of there. But it's empty again, and I had to get after the hedges because I don't want them to go, because they go up the back, and there's a garage and a patio up there, and we don't see them. And I couldn't figure out why they weren't coming out on this door up across from my house, and there's one on Galena's side too. We couldn't see them, and we were wondering what they did. So we found out they were squatters, and we finally got them out. But I'm worried now that we will have somebody come and squat again. But I got the hedges done because that's the signal that they could go in there. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Gussie, for sharing. William Gussie.
See if I can get this. Hi, my name is William H. Gussie. I live at 1213 Beardsley Street. And I want to talk about Waters Park. There's let's see. Glenwood Street, 169. There's a little driveway up to the park. And it is a mess. The people, they put break glass bottles and things like that. And we've got a lot of, I'm 76, but we've got a lot of older people than me. I'm a youngster to them. So I would like to try and get the city to sweep the place up there to get to Waters Park. And also, they said there was a tree that has fallen where they can't get up there right now. And so I would like to see if that can get done. And then I've got one little complaint. I went at the primary to vote, and I was a Democrat for 70 years. Now, for the last 6 years, I've been Republican. And they told me when I went there that I was not allowed to vote. And I couldn't understand why. And they told like my daughter and that, she wasn't allowed to vote and things like that. And this was up at St. John's Church. And I mean, that just upset me. They said there was only Democrats, so you had no right to vote on anything. And that's all I've got to say right now, and I appreciate being able to speak. Thank you.
Mr. Gussie, thank you so much for sharing, and that what you just shared, you should probably definitely share with Summit County Board of Elections, okay? Apostolette.
Good evening again, everyone. Before my request from legislation, I would like to, first of all, thank you for taking the time to hear me when I come. And I want to personally and professionally thank you, Council President Somerville and your family, Mr. Marco Somerville, your family, and those in the executive and other legislative body members, as well as even judicial people that may be watching or listening, for seeing about me in my situations. It's a storm that many probably could not have made it through. I want to also send a shout out to, once again, to Police Chief Steve Mylett, and I ask him to please don't leave. Don't even consider leaving Akron. There are some of us who really appreciate what you do, and I appreciate him, and I appreciate the Union President, Clay Cozart, for seeing about me also. And I know the sacrifices that Chief Mylett made for Jalen Walker's family, personal and professional. And it's very wrong that he's discounted like that, as well as the Union President, who sacrificed to be at the Citizens Oversight Board meetings where citizens don't even come, but he took the time to share. I ask that this legislative body would begin to put more laws in place to protect our rights as Christians, heterosexual people, people of multiracial descent, as well as we who are single. I don't feel like we should be discounted and excluded because we're not married. I don't feel like we need to be forced into marriages or we should be with people who we want to be with and not forced into marriages through the legislative process. I don't want to be married just to be married. And some people don't want to be married at all. I don't feel that it's fair that if I'm not gay or in the LGBTQ community, that I don't get fair housing, I don't get equal opportunities. I feel very discriminated against. I don't feel like I need to be jet black, and I don't feel like I need to meet the media traditional platform of being blonde hair, blue-eyed, and my hair straight. I feel like I should have fair and equal opportunities. I feel very discounted that as a Christian, my rights are violated, as well as other Christians. There are some things we should not have to be forced to accept, and we should not be denied the right to challenge. We should have prayer in our school system, as well as many other things. I believe in Jesus Christ. That's what's kept me, and I believe I should have a fair and equal opportunity to raise my children the way that they should be raised according to my principles and my faith. I ask that you would draft more legislation and see about the needs of the people a bit more. And thank you once again for seeing about me. I do appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Apostolette, for sharing. That actually concludes our public comment period for this evening. I want to thank all those who have participated. We're now going to move into our committee assignments, rules. Councilman Fusco. It's 2 o'clock. Public Safety, Councilman Kamer. Budget and Finance, Councilwoman Amobian.
3 o'clock.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Lombardo.
1:45.
Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
1.
Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilwoman Mosley.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman McKittrick.
2:45.
Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilman McKittrick?
I'm somewhat afraid that we're going to forget what today's date is. And today is 9/11. I think back to when our country was under attack. I was working for the city at the fire department that day. And that act of terrorism brought not only the city of Akron together, but our entire country together. I'm very proud of the fact that the city of Akron was able to donate a fire apparatus and an ambulance to the city of New York. But it's something I read just recently in regard to this. The responders that responded that day now who have died from exposures have outnumbered the amount of people who were killed on 9/11, who died from the act of terrorism. So I bring this up because as a community that did such a thoughtful act in donating that, this is something that we do need to remember and reflect on this on this day. Thank you very much.
Councilman McKittrick, thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything else coming? Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate Councilman McKittrick reminding us that we not forget. I just wanted to, I got an email from one of my constituents that was watching the meetings this afternoon. And he basically asked me, how could we have a public safety meeting that lasted maybe 5, no more than 10 minutes, and not talk about what happened during the month of August? One of the most violent months in a long time in this city's history. And I'm concerned because, you know, I had asked if we would take time to audit our city's permitting process for the parks. That was back in June. And it just fell on deaf ears. If we would have took time to audit our process, we would have found out that, hey, when we have youth events, since we know we have this youth violence problem in our community, we need to have police presence. But this body did nothing, the administration did nothing. And so now a 19-year-old was shot and a 7-year-old. God, thank God that it wasn't worse than what it was, but that could have been prevented. But here's another thing when we read this. Since we have these heat maps, we know that that's a high area for gun violence. We have youth already down there, and then we put more youth down there, and we don't do anything proactive to make sure that they're safe. I don't know if it's politics, which was brought up when we were talking about Copley Road. It was politics why children couldn't be out there. I don't know if it's just willful neglect or recklessness, but how can we know what we have going on in this city and not take any time to come together to address it? I went to the food truck event that was out at Hardesty Park. And I didn't see any police, but I did see security that were walking with firearms. I don't know if that's because we didn't have police. I don't know if because the people that put that on took the initiative to purchase that, but those are the kind of things we need to discuss, because as was mentioned during this afternoon in one of the meetings, public safety is one of our prime responsibilities outside of overseeing the budget. It's one of the basic necessities of government. But here we know we have a problem. It's been raised on this floor since before the shooting at Juneteenth. and we have not taken any time to have a discussion. So my question is, what is on the hearts and minds of my colleagues here within this circle and the administration? Thank God that child wasn't killed. But that could have been prevented because the question was asked, pleaded, let us take a look at our permitting process for our city parks. And I'm still going to ask that because what's problematic about that is if we're missing the obvious, my colleague spoke about, Pee Wee football services hundreds upon hundreds of children. And you know what? With those children, you have their parents. And that's how you begin to shift, make systemic change, make that cultural shift by engaging them in the type of activities and promoting to them the type of conduct you want within the city's parks. But this body, again, I'm asking, what is the mindset? Where are your hearts when you see what's happening on our streets and we have not come together to have any discussion about it, to put forth any kind of initiative, and to say, now that we're going to have police presence, well, good thing, but still, this body hasn't had any discussion. So, again, on behalf of my constituent who asked, how could we have a public safety meeting and not have any discussion? On behalf of them, I'd like for us to answer that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Councilwoman Amobian?
Thank you, Madam President. During the time we were off, there was an article in the newspaper about hiring practice regarding the firefighters. More importantly, it talked about an investigation, an internal investigation going on. And I've been engaged in a number of conversations with others who are deeply troubled by what I read. And I just wanted to say that we have talked and talked about our desire to diversify our safety forces. And we have hired individuals and given them extra duties to do something about it. And I know for a fact that Captain Sergi Lash has done some outstanding work in doing that work for us. For her to be tainted as doing something wrong and being in the newspaper at this time, I just want to make sure that whatever the investigation that would clear her name will be out in the open so that everybody can understand what happened, and for her to continue to do the good work that she has done for us. And I've done my own little investigation, not much, but I want us to look at the numbers of individuals of color prior to her start and after her recruitment efforts, so we can see what she has done and how many of those individuals have stayed on the force and the different fire stations. So we need to look at that because nothing speaks louder than actual results. And I know her, many of the people I've talked with know her, and we are deeply troubled by her name being tainted, and we want that to be cleared as soon as possible. So I don't know who's doing the investigation, how long it would take, but it needs to be done quickly, and it needs to be done publicly so people know that she did absolutely nothing wrong. And we need for her to be out there continuing to do the recruitment that she's been doing. Furthermore, I don't understand what happened in this interviewing process because all kinds of things were alleged in the newspaper. I mean, something as simple as being told what will count and what will not, what will be looked at and what will not. I mean, it sounds like either there were some mixed messages, some misunderstanding, but if somebody could give us a report, which is what happened with the home repair program. Once we understood all the details of what was going on with that program and why we were so far behind, it made more sense, and I can go out and talk about the needs. I just need to understand what happened in something as simple as applying for a position, meeting the qualifications, being told that you were on the list, and then being told that you're off the list. If someone could talk to us about that process. And it needs to be an open discussion so people can hear what happened. But furthermore, I really would like for Captain Lash's name to be cleared because, as I stated, she is doing the work that we have hired her and asked her to do in her new capacity. And again, we need to look at the results before she started her recruitment efforts and after. And I think that should be done as soon as possible. And thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Amobian. Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to acknowledge the points that my colleague, Mr. Neal, made, and I find myself in the position where I agree with some of it and I disagree with part of it. But, you know, I know there were so many days in August that either you got calls or text messages that broke your heart time and time again, or opened up Lieutenant Miller's daily email and got terrible news. I don't think there's anyone in this body who is cold-hearted, upon whom those losses do not weigh very heavily. And I think that that implication is an obstacle to progress in this regard. At the same time, I find myself agreeing with the sense of urgency that my colleague brings. I think that it's appropriate that we meet in our Parks and Rec Committee and really take a deep dive into this issue and look at what the administration is trying to do in terms of the changes to the policies, and make sure that not just with football, but with every kind of situation which young people are gathering, we're trying to create a safe environment. I mean, the situation is absolutely out of control. I think we know that. Just being at Lane Field 24 hours after that shooting, some of us witnessed, people doing wheelies down the side of the road in front of like half the police department, right? So there is a level of things have broken loose, and it is up to all of us to do our part. I am really appreciative to the police department in the work that has been done to bring people accountable for several of these murders that we've seen. But it is going to take every single person, and we have to find a way of speaking about this with urgency, without the implication that people do not care, because I just don't believe that's true.
Thank you. If I can, Councilman Kamer had his hand.
Thank you, Madam President. It does break my heart what happened to that 7-year-old and the 19-year-old, but most importantly, the 7-year-old. Actually, I'm really pissed off about it, to be honest with you. It should not be happening in our community, okay? Right before council break, I stood on council floor and I was upset with what was going on in the park in Firestone Park in Ward 7. And I didn't have shootings or stabbings or anything like that. But I will answer my colleague's question, why we need to discuss it in public safety, because I had 3 pieces of legislation that I was discussing, and it wasn't brought before me to maybe consider. Actually, I commend my colleague right across from me because he came up to me after the meeting today and said, hey, can we invite the chief back so we can get an update on the paramedics, the med conversation that we had with the medics. And I'll reach out to you, President Somerville. Actually, I'll let you know now that I'm willing to move forward with that conversation. I look across the room here, and I'm going to name drop some folks. I talked to that chief several times in the last 2 weeks about problems and issues that I'm having. Thank you. Deputy Service Director. I met with him a week and a half ago on spot when I was having problems, and I didn't have to bring it to council committee. Thank you. I appreciate that. Do I continue on? Budget and Finance, I talked to you about a month or so ago about some questions and concerns I had, correct? I didn't have to do it in Budget and Finance, but I'll do it. Sean Volman, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I spent an hour and a half with you today to talk about, it was an hour and a half, about recreation and parks issues that I'm having. But I will agree with my colleague, we do need to do something with the permit process. We do need to take a deep dive into that. But other than that, if you want, I'm more than happy to hold a 5-hour public safety meeting. I'm ready if you want to talk about it. Whatever you want to talk about, let me know. We can meet in here, we can meet across the room. I'll do it. But also, I'd like to meet with Parks and Rec because I probably have 2 hours to talk in that meeting. Public Service, Councilwoman Mosley, I could bring up a lot of things in that committee too. So just Sarah, President Somerville, some long Mondays coming. What else? Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Mr. Fusco. I could talk a lot about vacant homes, squatters in homes, homes not being torn down quick enough. So just the reason I bring all that up is if all my colleagues have time to have all these committee meetings and stuff, I'm ready. I'm ready. But public safety, as the chairperson, I'm here. I'm ready to talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm willing to give my whole afternoon. If it starts at noon and we can go till 5, we can meet across the hall, we can invite whoever we want. Youth violence, that's a very important topic to me. I don't think we're doing enough. I would like to do more. So if you want to continue that discussion, I'm open for that. But I want to thank my colleague, not to put you on the spot, for coming to me and saying, hey, Mr. Kamer, can we continue that discussion about the fire department and what's going on with our med units and our personnel and everything like that. So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I just, wanted to somewhat agree with my colleague from Ward 4 that I do think we need to take a deep dive into our parks and the permit process and really make sure we're doing enough and more than enough to make sure our children are feeling safe and families are feeling safe. But obviously, I don't think we need to meet in Parks and Rec to talk about it, but I'm open to that. So anybody that want to move forward with public safety issues, just reach out to me. And obviously, President Somerville, out of respect, because I have to include her when I move forward with calling committees and the topics. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Councilman Kamer. And I just want to say this before we move to Councilman Fusco, if we can. At Lane Field, after the situation happened, which was extremely tragic and very troubling, there was a prayer that was held. And I want to thank Councilman Malik, Councilman Fusco, Councilwoman Mosley, for being there, because we stood with players and coaches, police officers, and we prayed, because the thing about it is that it is a community issue. It's going to take all of us. We talk about being proactive. Cameras were scheduled to go in at Lane Field the very next day, but we know that it's going to take more than just cameras. There's a lot of work that we have to do. And again, Councilman Neal, if you want to have a meeting, again, all you have to do is just let me know, let the chair of public safety know, so that we can have those conversations. But I do want the community to know, and all of council to know, that we are having these conversations in the community with coaches and with leaders, because that's where the real change is going to happen. It was a beautiful sight. I think even, in fact, Councilman Malik and Councilwoman Mosley were out playing football, after the prayer with the young people. And so again, it's about that. It's about taking the time to engage with our young people, having conversations with parents and seeing what their concerns and what their issues are, and getting their perspective on what's happening in our city and as it relates to gun violence, and hearing from our young people. And we did that on that night. So I just want to thank the council members who were there. I want to thank the community leaders who have been engaged and who have been meeting to help us address this issue. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. Having quite a few conversations with Danico and the work that he's been doing, and taking it to another level in terms of ensuring that the ARPA funds that we have been spending are spent prudently, and looking at those outcomes. Also, I believe what we need to do too is ensure that the communication, I believe, is one of our biggest problems with our young ones, in terms of you have coaches that the kids look up to. And this could even be applied to arts and esports, etc. But coaches often are the ones who are looked up to. Okay. Teachers are often those that they need to be communicating. We have talked about this for years. Years ago, we tried to get that communication open. I believe the technology's out there these days that perhaps that's something we need to really pursue, because oftentimes the teachers in the classrooms can identify something. Also training coaches in terms of how to identify problems and how to handle them, even how to handle them often. Homework tables, these are types of things we've been talking about for some time, and they need to be pursued. I understand we just had a brief conversation in terms of that they've been going to Lane Field, APD, check. They've been checking on a routine basis since the shooting, and we all know that we're in a land where like the police are condemned. The police are, you see little stickers all over town, no more police, defund and this and that, and condemned and et cetera. We may not even have police officers enough to cover everything that needs to be covered, because currently we have so many that can retire, that's available to retire. But having these conversations with the police department, and we're very thin currently, and we don't even get what we used to in terms of applicants. And that's not been a problem just the last couple of years, that's been a problem for some time now. And beefing up that piece of it has got to be done. But having these conversations where everyone's in the room, having these conversations respectful, and we're in a land where on the federal level, state level, we've said this before time and time again, we're on our own. They're not going to do anything on illegal guns. Nothing is going to get done. We know that. It's been years and years and years. We're on our own. So I agree with the conversation that we've had here, and we do. I like many of our colleagues here, many of you, we get that email every day, and I'm afraid to open it sometimes. I don't want to read what's in there. But then again, conversely, though, it's a good day whenever nothing to report. Those are good days. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Councilwoman Mosley?
Thank you, Madam President. I don't want to throw Parks and Rec all the way under the bus, because Lori Shavy has been wonderful for me. I have had the East Akron Labor Day Festival for the last 4 years at Joy Park, and Lori and I have developed a system to make sure that everything is in place. And I think when we have other people who put in for permits, there needs to be a system and a check marks that they have to reach before the festival even happens. I put in my application with Lori. I always send her a copy of my insurance. I always make sure the city of Akron is the conduit for the insurance. This is something we do every single year. I talk to the chief to make sure that I have officers. Now, last year, I didn't have a lot of officer presence, which is the reason why I worked extra hard this year to make sure that we did. Last year, it's a holiday weekend. There's going to be a shortfall of officers. It's a holiday weekend. I had 2 officers last year. One of them was the chief, and the other one was Mike Miller. I think Murphy was there because they had a booth there. So I ended up with extra officers because they were hiring. They had a booth for hiring officers. But when you have other people who put in these permits, like what happened at Juneteenth, did they have insurance? Did they reach out to the right people to make sure that they had an officer presence? That's important. This year, I have more officers than I've ever had. I had all the, to make sure I get the acronym right, community engagement team. Vince was there the entire day with me. He even put the drone in the sky and got some wonderful footage. Didn't have one issue. Hundreds of people at the park. We had a basketball tournament there, pickleball tournament, splash pad. We had more vendors than we've ever had. We didn't have one issue, and it's because we had that presence there. And I know a lot of people were concerned, like, why do you have so many officers here? Because I want to make sure my neighborhood is safe. I want to make sure these kids are safe. They are the priority, and making sure that these kids can come and have a good time and not have to worry. And even if we saw things that looked a little shaky, you know, Vince would go and have a conversation with those young people. They had the community resource vehicle there, and these very same people that a lot of people think that they want to defund the police. This is not my neighborhood saying that. I want to be clear about that, because they want that presence there so their kids are safe. They do. They got in the community resource vehicle with the officers. Kids were in the police car trying on vests. And a lot of those young people were like, I'm going to be a police officer one day. That's what we have to do to restore that trust. But we have to make sure that our kids are safe in the process. It always has to be about safety first. And making sure that those check marks are hit prior to the festival even happening. If I would have not gotten any officers, I would have canceled it. I would have canceled it because I would have been uncomfortable because of everything that had been happening over the last 30 days in the city. And yes, we were concerned, but those coaches, those cheer moms, they all stayed out there in that 90+ degree weather, making sure that these kids were safe along with these officers. And so I think that we need to have a conversation about making sure they hit all those metrics before it's even approved, I think is where we have to start.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mosley. Councilman Neal?
Want to put something in historical context, because I know some of you weren't on council. This discussion about youth violence in our community goes back to when in 2013, this council passed legislation for the city to purchase a neighborhood mobile resource center. Because we understood that we couldn't have a police center, mobile police vehicle that went out for kids in the community go into, because it would have been known as the Snitchmobile. So the Neighborhood Mobile Resource Center was for the community and the police and all the nonprofits to go out into a community and engage the community. That was passed in 2013. Where's that vehicle? It's not here. You asked about a plan. You all received a plan that our clerk mailed out right before we went on recess in July. That's where we can start, because that plan was put together by the community, the grassroots community, and it was one that was adopted by this city, the police department, the planning department, Jobs and Family Services, and Kent State University on how we provide wraparound support for our community. If we wait for this problem for the police to respond, guess what? We already have a problem. We already have a problem. Look at all the resources that I Promise Schools provides for some of our most challenged youth. And you've seen some of the challenges that they've had. The community has to embrace this change. Culture, you mentioned something, Councilman McKittrick. It was the culture, our national culture, that made us able to rally one another. Forget whatever color we were, what our religion was, we came together as a nation. Culture is that operating system, it's the thing that binds people. Let me just put it like that. What's missing right now in our community is we are void of culture. And because we're void of culture, the subcultures are dominating in our community right now. That's why we have the problem. And you don't change that with programs. It takes real change. Now, I want to let you know how long we've been having this discussion. I'm going to ask if our clerk can pull the meetings from the 2 times when council, I see it's funny to some, but again, we have people that are dying on the streets. Go back to when council and the school board met. We only met twice. And on both of those meetings, there was a request that we have a discussion about the youth violence back then. And it never happened. So if you want to know why I say, where is the intentionality about this body? We're going back over 10 years of systemic practices amongst the administration and this legislative body of not dealing with the real issue. Anybody can show up for one time. That's not what this is about. We have to have real systemic change, cultural shifts. The practices down here feed into the dysfunction that's out in our community. And so, please, I understand very well, because the legislation that was brought in 2013, I brought in on behalf of the community. And the council that was filled this horseshoe at that time passed it. And we worked in conjunction with the administration, but it just sat there. So real discussion has to take place. And, you know, I'll share with my colleagues. I talk to colleagues from across the country that are in council. Some of them have meetings that last 12 hours because they're doing the work of the people. So if that's what it takes for us to really do the work, that's what we need to do. But let us not think that we've handled the work of the people because we go, and I know this is going to upset some people, because we go to a prayer vigil. That's good. That helps with their social, emotional stress that they're going through. But they're counting on us to come back here into this horseshoe and do the work that's needed to make the systemic change that's happening in our community. And that has not happened over the past 10 years, since 2013.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. And again, I just want to make it very clear, each and every council member around this horseshoe has the power, has the authority to hold a meeting and have discussion, right? You just have to pick up the phone, send an email, and make it happen. Is there anything else coming before this body at this time? There's a motion to adjourn. No objections. Councilman Malik.
Just while we are all here, it might be appropriate to decide that we are going to discuss this at Parks and Rec next Monday. Is that appropriate?
We can do that, but
Okay.
it's not necessary at this.
Okay, I just want to be clear on the record.
Thank you, Councilman Malik, for making that motion.
I just want to say one thing as well. It's very important. I think we should thank Sarah Biviano, the folks in IT, Michelle, Madison, everybody. We have this new technology here, and I'm hoping it's going to make it easier for the public for transparency purposes. And plus, we can hear one another, which is probably the best part.
Yes, thank you so much.
Even though we had a couple hiccups, it's all
It's
good.
okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.